Hi, and welcome to today's episode. My name is Dr. Faith Elizabeth Nanyonga. I'm your host on this podcast called The Framed Solutions. Today I'd like to talk about imposter syndrome. Imposter syndrome is a feeling that you're not good enough, that soon you'll be discovered as a fraud. 70% of us still feel this way, despite your accomplishment, your studies, your experience, and your expertise. For instance, myself, I've studied, I've done lots of research, I've worked, but the moments of my life that I feel like, oh my goodness, if given this task, I'm going to be discovered that I don't know anything. So, despite all my achievements, I'm not here to brag, but despite all my achievements, I still feel that I'm a fraud. There is that voice at the back of my mind that tells me, Faith, you're not good enough. You cannot get that job. Well, they were asking for people who have 5 years experience. You only have 2. You're going to be discovered as a fraud. But I've gone ahead to counter that. I've gone ahead to silence that voice. So today I'm going to discuss the imposter syndrome in detail. And if you're ready to listen and learn something, please grab yourself a cup of tea or a snack, listen in, get your headphones, and let's dive into this episode. So, what's imposter syndrome? Imposter syndrome actually is a psychological thing. It is that feeling that you tricked some people to believe that you're good enough, and soon they're going to discover that you are not good enough and you're not worthy of what you have. Many of us have felt it, and we continuously feel it every day. It is not a psychological illness, but it's just a condition. And it often strikes in mostly high-achieving individuals. The ones that seem to have it all and have everything together are the ones that often feel that they're not good enough. It's natural to feel overwhelmed when learning something new or trying out something new. But with imposter syndrome, the feeling never goes away. You continuously feel it each and every day. CEOs feel it. Students, I've been a student, I've felt it. Those times when I'm going to give a presentation and I feel like, oh my goodness, I don't even know what I'm going to talk about. Those times when I'm going to present my thesis or viva and you feel like, goodness, I feel like I didn't do anything. The results are not enough. They're going to discover that I've been just playing around during my PhD. And you feel like the moment that you step on the stage or you say a thing, you're going to be sacked. You lose your job. You lose your career. Everyone will lose their belief in you. So, imposter syndrome is really serious, and we have to counter it in this episode. So, first thing you need to do is ask yourself, are you comfortable with accepting praise from others? Or every time you appreciate it, you're like, no, that wasn't much. I don't feel like I nailed it. You were not proud of all your achievement. You find like, so when someone does something good and they tell them, oh, that was great work, you feel like, no, I don't think it was. It wasn't good enough. So that's also a sign that you suffer from imposter syndrome. Also, do you doubt your genuine intelligence? Are there moments that you feel like, I'm not good enough because I feel dumb? I feel like I'm the dumbest of all people on earth. Say if I stand to give a speech, I'm prepared for the speech, but I feel like, oh, if I start speaking, people are going to discover that I do not know anything, that I cannot even explain the simplest of points. Do you ever feel like you're faking your way in life? This is how you diagnose imposter syndrome. These are the questions you need to ask yourself. And the next part, we're going to discuss the types of imposter syndrome. But before that, here's an advert from our sponsor, Anchor. So I've defined 4 general classes of imposter syndrome. These classes are based on individuals. The first one is the perfectionist believes that any error they make makes them become a fraud. They like to have everything perfect. If everything is going well and just a small bit of thing goes wrong, they feel like they've lost it. They feel that they're going to be discovered as a fraud. So what do? They try as much as possible to concentrate on that one task and produce it flawlessly. in event that anything fails, even if it's not in their own power, they beat themselves up that they lose trust in their own abilities. They will talk about it every single day. And it will bring them down. It will make them lose that belief that they can do anything. So, are you a perfectionist? Do you know perfectionism also is a component when it comes to imposter syndrome? So ask yourself these questions. When I make a mistake, do I find it really hard to let it go? Am I generally over-prepared when it comes to meetings or any aspects of my work? The second person is the natural genius. The natural genius believes that they are very, very bright. So if they do not know anything about a certain topic, they feel they're a fraud. Growing up in an African setting, many of our parents expected us to bring in A's, bring in first grades, distinctions, and be on top of our classes. So our minds were in tuned in such a way that you have to struggle hard to be that natural genius. Even when things are not going well for you, you'll have to work your butt off to make sure you produce a distinction. Well, some people are gifted and they're naturally bright and intelligent. But for natural genius, if you bring a concept that they do not know, they will spend days beating themselves up. How couldn't I know something that simple? Let's say I'm a molecular virologist. If you ask me something from immunology, which is the study of the immune system, I might not know it. But if I'm a natural genius, I'll be like, wait a minute. All these years I've been studying biology. How come I didn't grasp that concept? So I'll feel inadequate because I believe as a natural genius, I should know every aspect there is in the topic of biology, which is not always possible. So a natural genius believes that new things should be easy to learn. And if there is any hardship in learning them, they are devastated and they feel they are a fraud. The third type of imposter syndrome is a person who is a workaholic. A workaholic believes their life rotates around their work. Everything they have to do is work related. They are that type that you go for dinner and they'll be telling you about their work. They're that type that you go for a coffee with them and they'll be telling you about what they have to do after they've left the coffee date. They're the ones that you go hang out with them and instead of talking about life, they'll be telling you, I'm very busy. I don't have time for this. I have to go and work. Yes, that also can bring up the imposter syndrome. A workaholic also believes that asking for help is a sign of weakness. So while their plate is full, they'll pile in more work. While their plate is full, they'll ask for the next assignment. When they are dealing with one project, they'll want to start working on the second one. They want to juggle everything. And they don't want to be seen as weak, so they do not ask anyone for help. They want to do everything themselves. So to assess if you're workaholic, you need to ask yourself these questions. So do you feel pressured to work longer hours and harder than everyone else to accomplish what you have to accomplish? Do you seek out for new opportunities even when your plate is full? Well, if you do that, then you are a workaholic. So the last type of imposter syndrome is a person who is an expert, the expert. The expert is one who believes that knowledge is power. And to be legitimate, the expert needs all the knowledge, even when they've already existed what there is. If you look at this, it kind of combines with a workaholic. So the questions to ask yourself if you're an expert are, do you think you need to know all that there is before you can start up a job? Do you seek new trainings even though you have the qualifications it takes to do the job? Well, I should say I also kind of lie somewhere in between here. So for those who don't know, I'm a mom of one. So I took 1 year off to raise my son. And when this happened, I kind of wanted to keep on track with what is happening, given the current pandemic. And that's my field of expertise. I kept on looking for things that I could study more. I kept on looking for things, even if I was taking the year off, I kept on looking for things to be an expert. I want to know more knowledge. I'm trying to look for those kind of jobs that will stimulate me. I'm looking for those courses, online courses that I can do to up on my PhD and also continue doing more in that regard of virology. The other thing also that I tried to do was try to look for other courses that I could still pursue or courses that I could still do. So even when I'm applying for a job right now, I'm thinking like, oh, they're asking for this qualification. Is there a way out? Can I find a short course, a crash course that I could do? And I say, oh, I'm skilled in this technique that they're looking for as I make my applications. So I confess that I lie also in this expert kind of imposter syndrome group, because I believe that knowledge is power. I believe that I need to know as much as possible, even before I can apply for a job that I'm already qualified to apply for, but I feel like, oh, I don't know this aspect. Oh, I've worked on this virus, but it's this current virus, so I need to make sure that I'm pumping in more hours of reading and hours of researching so that when I make the application, I sound knowledgeable and I sound like I have the power, that I'm an expert in that field. So now that we've looked at the 4 components or the 4 general classes of imposter syndrome, or that causes us to be imposter syndrome victims, the next part is going to be a self-assessment. I want you to sit down and assess yourself based on these 4 factors that I've talked about. And since I don't want this episode to be so long, can I just cut this here so that in the next episode that I'll be releasing, we shall talk about how you need to counter imposter syndrome. That will be part 2. So my dear listeners, if you've learned something from this podcast and this episode, please share with me. Hit me up on Instagram at TheFrameSolutions. Send me an email at TheFrameSolutions@gmail.com, or share this podcast with a friend. It could help, because the reason why I started this podcast is to help each and every one through the lessons that I've learned on my journey as I've developed my career and my lifestyle, so that I can give them out to a new person. Because I remember while I was in high school, I really wanted to develop my career, but I didn't have many people to look up to when it came to career development and personal development. So I made this platform just for that child, just for that person who was me at that point of my life, when I needed someone to encourage me, I needed someone to teach me, I needed someone to guide me. So this is my love letter, or my heart poured out onto you people, so that as you listen to this episode, if you learn something, please share it with a person that it would be of help to. Tweet it, share it on Instagram, share it in your WhatsApp groups. Whoever wants to listen and learn something in terms of personal development, this is a place for you. I can't wait to speak to you in the next episode. And remember that every one of us has suffered imposter syndrome. Research says 70%, but I believe more than 70% of us, we suffer from imposter syndrome. The feeling that you're not good enough, the feeling that you'll be discovered as a fraud. So I'm going to draft up a cheat sheet that will help you. In case you need any more information in this regard, or a template, hit me up and I'll send it to you so that you can be able to do your own evaluation and we can develop together. I hope to speak to you in the next episode. Thank you so much for tuning in. Remember that imposter syndrome is real and you're not alone. And I don't want you to suffer alone when there is help. Bye-bye.